As a business analyst, when determining the best solution to choose, the key determinant is the project results expected. Simply speaking, we want to move with the option that brings us the most eventually, or causes the least amount of damage in some cases. This means we are trying to form a forecast, that is, to predict within reasonable certainty what occurrence is taking place. Well, those who believe in true predictions not only need to go ahead and look at the success rate of the weather forecast to see the effectiveness of that model. That being said, we are, as business analysts, not entirely spared of this exercise. And so, how do we go ahead and approach the subject matter? In his book, The Signal and the Noise, Nate Silver explains in a very convincing manner the importance of understanding the difference between useful and non-useful data, and talks about 3 principles that I would like to go ahead and highlight right now. Principle number 1, think probabilistically. What does that actually mean, if you can only say it? Well, what are we looking at, and what are the chances of any possible outcomes actually taking place? Take a look at this diagram on the screen. This is called a cone of uncertainty. Usually when we start with an endeavor, we don't have much information, so we make a whole slew of assumptions. We still need to figure out a way to move forward, though. So you can look at the use of an assumption as a way of forecasting results of some knowledge you might have, and the idea is that you continue through what you are undertaking. You're compelled to either validate or repudiate your assumptions. Eventually, either your assumption needs to be shown as being either true or false. If it's true, then it becomes a fact. If proven false, well, then you need to be able to regroup and determine what this actually means for your endeavor. Okay? Back to Nick Silver in principle number 1. Silver alludes to the situation and infers that the more we know, or better said, the more we are able to know, the higher the probability of forecasting and the right outcome. Let's move on to principle number 2, which is today's forecast is the first forecast of the rest of your life. No, that sounds rather dramatic, which helps in making the point stick. Well, what he means here is that yesterday's predictions should have no bearing on your predictions for today. And this makes a lot of sense if you think about it. Let's go back to the cone of uncertainty I just showed you. We should hope to have more information today than we did yesterday, right? Well then, why should yesterday's status affect today's review? Obsolete data produces a clear bias, which does not help the forecasting process at all, and in fact is extremely counterproductive, so don't use it. Let's get back to Silver's 3rd principle, which is look for consensus. We'll talk about crowdsourcing more in detail in one of the following video lectures this week, but the idea is that the aggregate forecast, by and large, is more accurate than the individual one. The key here is being able to, 1, obtain enough disparate opinions to figure out what is the consensus of the masses, and how do we use this data as a rolling benchmarks, as you will, to determine the viability of the forecast that you're trying to formulate. Remember, as a business analyst, we are playing the role of trusted advisor. So it is imperative that the information we're looking at is sound. We understand there are no absolutes, and we need to be focused in coming up with structures which allow us to react quickly and effectively to any alterations placed on those earlier assessments. So I hope you enjoyed this week's video lecture, and let's go ahead and move on to the next one. Thank you.